Okay. Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Fever.
Here.
Commissioner Hunthausen.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here.
And I did hear CAO Baltz announce that Commissioner McCormick and Commissioner Ralph may be attending online. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Okay, I'll check just a moment. At this time, I don't see them on, so.
Okay. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena and Lewis and Clark County joint work session. We are pleased to be able to provide the alternative meeting format in the effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. At this time, we call on support services and 911. Intern, Police Chief.
Mayor, Commission, thank you. Renee, did you want to announce the other commissioners?
Yes, just for the record, Mayor Collins, Commissioners, I believe Commissioner Tom Rolfe from the county is doing this.
Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, Commission. So I will talk about the SSD budget. That's the support service division budget. That covers the operations out of the dispatch center as well as the record section here at the Helena Police Department, which that's joint between Helena Police Department and the Lewis and Clark County for all the records that come through. And then also that fund covers personnel as well. The 218 fund, I'll start with that. That's the 911 center operating costs. That includes equipment costs along with the maintenance and software yearly fees. This fund it's funded by fees placed on phones to which the state collects and disperses depending on the county population. That is where all those fees from the cell phone come from, and that's how we do our operating costs out at the 911 center. Just so, and I want to, in case people didn't know that, explain that a little bit. Same page here. The projections for the 218 fund for our operating costs are actually going to be about 14.5% down. A large chunk of that came out this year, $100,000 we used for, it was half for the consulting fee for our new CAD RMS project that's coming up. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I know probably the majority of folks in this room are familiar with that, but I'll touch on that just a little bit later. Two main areas in this 218 and the operation costs. What we've done and been able to do is the grants that we have acquired. We've acquired two sizable grants from the state. One is in the area of the mid 400,000s, and that was for a new phone system that has been accepted, implemented. We're operating on the new phone system. That phone system, I wouldn't say archaic, but it was close. So we're doing a much better job with that, keeping up with the technology there. The next grant that we have been awarded, actually be in front of the commission on a consent agenda, is for a voice print. Voice print is technology that everything that comes into that dispatch center is recorded. Radio traffic, phone calls, which is an absolute must for that center. Big thing is evidentiary value when we have big events or anything like that. So we have a grant for that. One thing with both of these grants, we go back to that voice print system, that's just shy of 400,000 that we were able to get. That has been outdated. I don't even want to talk about the technology that we've used to keep it up to date, but one thing with both these grants is we've been able to secure the yearly and maintenance fees for the next 5 to 10 years. So our budget will not be hit with those yearly maintenance fees, which you talk this kind of technology, it's upwards 25, 50,000 a year just to keep these systems up and running and to have the required personnel work on them if something goes wrong. So those grants will cover that. I know for the voice print for a fact, with the proposal that came in, it was actually for 10 years that will be covered. So very good thing with that. On the 218, as I said, operating costs will actually be down because we used 100,000 for the consulting firm. Not much more unless you guys have questions on that fund specifically, Commissioner.
Please go ahead.
Just a quick question, the charges for services, can you tell me what that is? It's at the top.
Oh, the 218?
Yeah, it's
Yep.
fluctuating quite a bit, I'm just curious what that is.
And Farah, if you're online. Farah's here as helping me out.
It appears that, excuse me, Commissioner Reed, it's a reimbursement from St. Peter's Hospital,
Oh,
the training. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Anderson. Any other comments or questions from the body?
Three ambulance services are on dispatch. One of them, I know,
so
which would it be, other than St. Pete's and the fire department?
Mayor, Commissioner Fever, thank you. Where I was gonna go with that is, since that's the one you're looking at, the ambulance board is comprised up of members of the public safety realm along with the ambulance. There's an ambulance contract. Within the last 5 years, they've agreed to give the dispatch center 60,000 for dispatcher training, ongoing training. That'll actually go up by 1,000 the next year and 1,000 after that. We use St. Peter's. We also dispatch for St. Peter's. The other ambulance services that we have used and can use are Eagle ambulance. Now that doesn't have to do with, I don't want to get into the ambulance contract because the ambulance contract is for St. Peter's, but we use Eagle ambulance from the PD for blood draws, when a DUI blood draw.
So, Mayor, Commissioner, I think it goes back many years when there were competing ambulance services in Lewis and Clark County and the City of Helena. The law allows us to create an ambulance district, and it's then governed by the board, which allows us to maintain a high quality of service with ambulance services so that we don't have competing calls from competing ambulance services. It's been in place for what, 20 some years now? I think that it's served the city and the county well.
I'm saying when you were here way back before.
I think that's when the law was first passed, that allowed us to do it.
So just make sure I've got it straight. The fire department has its own ambulance.
Emergency response.
Emergency response, okay. I understand. And St. Pete's has an ambulance service. Do you call that emergency response or just?
Yes, advanced life-saving support.
And if the police department has a drug issue, the dispatch sends Eagle.
No, dispatch will send St. Pete's. St. Pete's everything. We've contracted for DUI blood draws, which it's going to be a topic for another day. But the blood draws, we're not doing DUI blood draws as of right now because we went back to the intoxilizer again. The topic for a different day, but we contracted through Eagle through those blood draws.
I don't know Eagle. That's right here in town.
Jefferson County, I believe, is where they run out of.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions for Chief Petty? Are you done, Chief?
I'm not mayor. Mayor Commission, part of this, the SSD budget is the 219 fund that covers the records operation costs, which are very minimal compared to the dispatch operation costs. And then the personnel, which is the big one for so the 219, the fund 219 is funded directly through or only by the public safety mill levy. There are some revenues that come in that you'll see on the 219, very minimal. Those would be alarm permits, background checks, any kind of fees that records has. I also have a note later on down in my discussion. So if you cover records, the operation of records, and then you cover the dispatchers and records clerks, which is going to be our personnel cost, I didn't see 219 in the packet.
Oh,
I didn't see it in the package, so I apologize. I'm going off my notes. 219, operational records and personnel. The personnel that it covers, I just wanted to give a list. It's 2 911 center managers, 1 public safety systems administrator, 10 dispatchers. 3 of those right now, we actually have 10 on staff right now. 3 of those 10 are in training, and actually we're hiring 1 more here in a couple of weeks. We have someone that's actually returning to us, which is wonderful. And then we have 3.5 records clerks, 3 full-time, 1 part-time, and then we have a records supervisor. That covers the personnel of the 219 fund. That 219 fund is funded from the public safety mill levy. That's where those funds come from. As we know, the dispatch wages increase. We have been working in partnership with county administration, city administration through vacancy savings. FY23 is going to be okay and sustainable for the increase in wages. However, we're going to work together because we're going to have to find funding source to maintain. And we know from the dispatch center and the public safety standpoint, we have to maintain that center. So FY23, yep, we're good. We've had a lot of vacancy savings, as everyone knows here. You know, when you're only working with 6 dispatchers, unfortunately, that creates a savings. But,
Can you talk about?
yes, sir.
Can you talk about your ability to staff now as compared to prior to the salary adjustments?
So where we're at, this is May. It's already May. What happened, I would say a year ago, with the current wage or with the wages they were at, we would get applications in. Either they wouldn't show up for their scheduled testing, or I'll just generically say the quality of candidates were not good. And if we were hiring a candidate, it seemed like we were rolling the dice. Not that a lot of people have prior experience dispatching. You don't find a lot of that. So we have to mold them and train them and make them into a dispatcher. But we couldn't find folks even to do that. So it was a tough pool out there. I think obviously with the wage increase, we have had, I don't want to say quadruple the applications, and we actually had a pool to choose from when we're hiring. And 2 of the 3 that we just hired are dispatchers from other places, 1 here local. So we actually attracted other people to come in. And like I said, the one that we are hiring is a very good dispatcher. He left, and his letter back to us said, "The grass isn't always greener. I'm coming back." So it has drastically helped. And to have at least 10 dispatchers, he'll be 11 on staff to where we can actually get a schedule. You can actually get a rotation. Those folks can maybe have a weekend off, maybe a night off here and there. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge for retention. So
thank you, Chief.
Last thing with that 219 I wanted to add was the CAD RMS. CAD is computer aided dispatch. RMS is record management system. Those things play hand in hand. When the dispatcher enters something into the computer system, it goes into the records management system for the operators out in the field. This is a huge endeavor. Our system right now is 20 years old, almost to the date, and it's about 10 years outdated. So we've got the consultant hired. They've been on it for about, well, it's May, so about 5 months now. We're probably 18 to 24 months out. Another thing that we've worked out or working on is the funding for this. Initially, it was talked about the public safety mill levy. There is language in there about outdated computer equipment. Unfortunately, that is, as we know, there's only a finite amount of that to go around. So we can only use so much. So one thing we looked at is possibly we get an amount and then we do an intercap loan. Probably not ideal. One thing that we've just started talking about too were possible ARPA funds on both sides, city, county. This venture going into this CAD RMS system is roughly $2 million. That's what we're looking at. But we've had good discussions. city county about this and moving forward. And I think with collaboration, we can actually make it happen. That's my hopes for this next year. I mean, I don't know if it'll be fully implemented by maybe mid FY 23, but we'll see. Ready for questions.
Comments or questions for Chief Petty? Okay, anybody? That's good. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your presentation.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I can just make a comment about partnerships. You know, a lot of, it seems to me like a lot of times we talk about partnerships and working together. And where the dispatch center is a really excellent example of that. The City of Helena is there. And I think maybe you all know this, but also there's a room attached to the dispatch center. Commissioner Rolfe and I just went out there and toured it last week again to remind ourselves of it. So if we ever need to activate the emergency operations center out there, we can use that space. There's also a small building beside the larger building where dispatch is that the county has entered into a lease with the airport. So there's yet a third partner working together with the airport authority out there. And they also have their training center out there that has the fuselages of airplanes that from time to time they catch on, that they ignite to train firefighters on.
Yeah.
And so there's a combination of, I think, really good partnership that's occurring with the dispatch center location of the airport and the county out there. Just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Balls. Any other comments? No, we'll move along. Thanks, Chief. We appreciate your presentation.
Mayor, I appreciate it. If I could just add one little thing, we, the SSD board, which oversees the SSD, they make recommendations on the budget. On April 14th, that board met and they actually, they recommended this budget to the commission. So city manager reminded me of that. So good to go. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. All right. 320, it's 319. We're moving along. Pats, valid bus system director Kanaki. Is he online or you got me there? Oh, I apologize. You got the floor there.
They cannot see.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Deputy Director Chris Cooey. So we'll go over capital transit, that's the East Valley route. So a couple of changes coming in the next year for capital transit. The biggest one that we've already started on so far is the implementation of our flexible ride scheduling app through a company called Spare. It's been up and running for a couple of months, and our ridership has really seen some exponential growth over the first couple of months there. So started out in 2-week periods of between 700 and 800 riders, and we're up to just over about 1,500 every 2 weeks now. I believe our number for April is around 5,000 riders for the month of April. So getting our numbers back up to where they used to be. And then again, another change, which is really more of just sort of an administrative maneuvering. So combining those, used to see the separate funds, 580 and 581, one for capital transit, one for the East Valley route. Our operators for the East Valley route, we rotate them in and out. We don't really have a distinct sort of dedicated driver or really operation for the East Valley route. It was really an administrative breakout in the past. And with trying to bring everything together and expand some services, we're sort of just combining all of that into one fund going forward. We're also exploring and requesting to increase the fare to $1. It's been at 85 cents for a lot of years, and then it's never really gone up. Our allocation, our 5311 grant allocation continues to go up, which means the match continues to go up with that, and most of our contributions, and that'll bring me sort of to my next point, contributions from the county and East Helena. We're requesting some increases in those as well. As that match continues to go up, we have to come up with ways to be able to meet it. So those are the big changes coming. The state does have some new software, it's called Black Hat. Again, it doesn't recognize below $1 for its fares. So we really get some under-reporting when we get back from them because we can't tell them that we only got the 85 cents. So another move in that direction. I do have on your memo there, I don't know if it's in the packet, if the entire budget is in anything. No, okay. So we'll stick with these numbers. I would say they may fluctuate variously, but not too much going forward, just a couple of last minute tweaks, but for the most part, you can see about 1.6 million in revenues, and then almost 1.8 million on the expense side. An overall cash flow of about 150,000 to the negative. And again, that's sort of a part of how the capital transit budget is built. There's a budget that we give to the state, which includes everything that is reimbursable under our grant program. And then there is the overall budget, which includes some additional administrative expenses and things like that that are not reimbursable under that grant program. And that's really what leads to that negative cash flow. So I think that with our increased contributions that we can get on a plan for those, with our increased fares to $1, our ridership really coming back strong, I think all of those changes will move capital transit back to a positive flow over the next couple of years. Get us away from that so that we can meet that match requirement. That's all I got, Mayor. I'll take some questions if you have any.
Thank you, Director Cooley. I see Commissioner Reed, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, not a question. It was really great to see the change in ridership since the flexible scheduling has started. I commend you for that. And at some point, obviously not right now, it'd be interesting to see how ridership has changed, where the rides are being requested from, where they're going to facilitate the expansion to meet that need. But it's great to see. So thank you for all the work on that.
Yeah, I echo what Commissioner Reed is saying. It's really, really neat to see that. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please, Commissioner
Thanks,
Dean.
Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. One, I'm assuming that the personnel expenditures here include the COLA.
They do, Commissioner.
And then my second question is, do we have a plan, or are we making a plan for going to have the capital shuttle again during this session? I imagine it will look different if we do it. It will look different since the mall
Well, it's gone.
was redeveloped, and it's not just parking lots anymore. So I'm just curious if we have any.
Sure. So Mayor, Commissioner Dean, it's our understanding at this point that the capital shuttle will not be coming back. They have not given any indication that they want it for this next session, or really any session beyond that either.
Say that now.
But is there a possibility they may request it, and are we prepared to accommodate?
At this time, Mayor, no, we're not budgeting for the state shuttle. We've been told, no, we don't need it. That's how we're moving forward from that.
Roger that. Any other comments for Director Cooley? Go ahead.
So does the city decide on the 15-cent increase, or is that a city county decision? You want to go from 85 cents to $1 per rider?
So, Mayor and Commissioner Fear, I do believe it's the city policy would be in our fees, when we pass our fees.
So presumably that'll be coming forward or not?
They will. Any other comments or questions for Director Cooley? Thank you. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Okay, we will now be on the City County Building Administration. Community Facility Superintendent Sampson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Today I'm presenting the budgets for I have four budgets: the City County Building, the City County Mail Fund, City County Telecom, and the Law and Justice Fund. And just a quick overview for some of the new folks. So the city county building, Law and Justice Center, and the joint operations are managed by the Community Facilities Department. The department's responsible for the maintenance and repair of city facilities and also the joint city county facilities. The department manages the city and county central mail division, as well as both entities' main phone lines from the information desk. We also serve as the liaison for the Public Art Committee in the Public Education and Government Channel, or Facility Management Division manages preventative maintenance, inspection and repairs of all city and city county jointly owned buildings and the equipment associated with those buildings that's necessary to operate the facility. The division also provides contracted and in-house services to maintain a clean and safe working environment for city and county employees and manages operations at the city county building. In addition to that, we also have the city commission, or I'm sorry, the city chamber building, neighborhood center, and Grant Street Theater. So today, just kind of the overview, the facilities department has implemented a new computerized maintenance management software that's going to help staff track the conditions and maintenance of facility assets and equipment. And in fiscal year 22, third-party assessment was performed on all city facilities and the city county joint facilities. That information provided from the assessment is going to be utilized by staff to develop a short-term and long-term capital. This assessment was very thorough, and staff is reviewing it at this time. And we have proposed several of the immediate repairs that were pointed out in the assessment in our FY23 budget. We'll talk about the city county building fund 570. This fund account is for the activities related to the administration and maintenance of the city county building. This fund has 4.5 employees, FTEs. And the revenues are predominantly through rent charges for both the city and the county. The square foot rate we're proposing is $19.50 per square foot, which is the same rate we're at in FY23. Revenue is anticipated to increase 0.3% due to additional square footage allocations. Expenditures other than capital and debt services are budgeted to increase by 8.9% over the FY22 budget. And those increases are primarily due to a 5% COLA and 3% increase to health benefit and increased cost of supplies for maintenance. Some of the items that we're looking at maintaining in the city county building next year, we have some carpet replacement in various offices, some repairs and fencing. We have a boiler feed water pump that needs replaced and some new conference room furniture for room 426. Some of the capital projects that are proposed are a LED lighting retrofit for the city county building. It'll be a kind of phase 1. We also have some tile roof repairs, replace the pad heat boiler. We have some sidewalks that don't meet ADA on the south portion of the building. We do a partial replacement of that. And then we are proposing to upgrade the audio visual equipment in rooms, commission chambers, room 330 and this room 326 and then 309, which will allow for better viewing and interacting for meetings such as this, where we have a hybrid style meeting. Some of the accomplishments we had in FY22 We did security upgrades. We're actually in progress right now. We're wrapping that up for access control before and after hours for our exterior doors, which will make the building more secure during those off hours. We also did the motor vehicle and elections remodel. We're just wrapping that up, expanding that service on the first floor. And our expenditures are projected to exceed our revenues by about $70,000. And this fund has reserves to cover those orders. In your packet, some of our capital projects are there. We're showing those projects, the budget request about $323,000. And the city county building capital reserve fund will fund those projects.
May I ask a question, Superintendent Simpson? Yes. I know you spoke about some of the security measures this building is going to be, that will be implementing this building. Can you tell me what are some of those measures you're looking at?
So the security measures that we're taking right now are really just exterior access control before and after working hours. So it will be the doors will automatically lock. Employees will have badges to enter. The building will be unlocked. So the access control won't be needed during normal business hours. But after hours, when people are still working, we can.
The keys will not work.
Keys will not be necessary on the exterior doors. That is true. Yes. And we'll have a log of who's coming in and out, if we need that. Any other questions on the city county building?
Please.
Mr. Sampson, just curious about the LED lighting retrofit, because we did some not too long ago in this building, right? I'm just curious about where and what that's all about.
Yeah, so some of the ones that we have done, this room is an example. The remodel of the DMV and basement elections area. What we're proposing now is first floor motor vehicle, clerk and recorder's office. They have the majority of lighting that's on all the time, so that's our first. Try to look at the bigger rooms, I guess, to up that energy bill.
Any other comments before he continues? Go ahead.
All right. So City County Building Mail Fund. This is a joint central mail system that both city and county utilize. This has 3/4 FTE associated with it. Our operating budget will increase about 0.9% over the 22 adopted budget. And our operating expenditures are budgeted less than 1.2% over last year. The mail fund is a very solvent fund. We've been able to hold our costs pretty steady. It's really a pass through. So when people put postage on, we put postage on their mail going out, we just fill that out here, and they're just covering our staff's time to process that. And pick up and deliver mail around satellite offices. Questions?
Comments or questions for Mr. Simpson?
Mayor, I have one question.
Please.
In the mail fund, there was capital outlay. I'm assuming that's a mail vehicle. Was that ordered or received, or what is the status of that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Director Danielson. The mail vehicle was ordered in fiscal 22. Right now, it's we haven't got a build date yet, but it is on the way.
Any other comments or questions? Please continue, sir.
The City County Building Telecom Fund is kind of a holdover, so I'd like to explain it. That's Fund 572. This fund accounts for activities related to the operation of the phone system within the city county building. So the information desk, the main phone line for the city and the county comes into that, and we disperse calls appropriately to the departments. ITNS covers that cost through the enterprise, the telephone enterprise. So it's just a percentage of our personnel time to answer the phones. That one is a pretty basic budget in that we have a personnel cost associated with it. IT pays us back for that.
Comments or questions for Mr. Sampson? Please continue, sir.
The last fund I have is the Law and Justice Center Fund 573. Again, this fund accounts for the activities related to the administration and maintenance of the Law and Justice Center. This facility has 3 FTE. I would like to point out this building was acquired in December of 2018, so it's fairly new to our operation. The rent structure is the same as city county building, where the revenue is based on rents from both city and county. The square foot rate in FY22 is $16.75. We're proposing $19 a square foot. This increase to rents for the Law and Justice Center allows for us to keep up with cost of living adjustments and personnel increases, contracted services, purchase services such as power and gas, and maintenance supplies and materials, and of course to save for future capital projects and replacements that may be needed. Revenue is budgeted to increase to 23.6% over FY22 adopted budget due to the additional space being rented by County Criminal Justice Services Department and Grants and Purchasing Department, and $2.25 per square foot increase. So we have vacant space on the 3rd floor of the pillar section, and we'll be able to rent that out this next year, so we'll have additional revenues. Expenditures, other than capital and debt, are budgeted to increase by 9.7% over FY22. Again, those are due to increases to COLA and health benefits. We do have some new furniture for conference room, and right now that conference room doesn't have furniture, so we're creating a conference room and purchasing furniture for that, and of course cost of supplies for them. We do have an intercapital loan for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and that payment this year will be about $77,000. The capital projects that we're proposing for this year, both of the boilers are beyond their life, and we've had those assessed, and we're on borrowed time right now. So our first priority is boiler replacements. We have south pillar roof replacement, atrium roof, lighting installation in parking lot number 2, and some restroom upgrades. In fiscal year 22, we had a couple of projects. The police patrol room remodel, we started and finished that, and we're just doing closeout on that, and that turned out very well for them. Right now, we're in the beginning stages of the 3rd floor remodel for the Criminal Justice Services Department grants. So revenues are projected to exceed our expenditures by about $41,000. Capital projects are not funded through rental rates, and the funding needs to be identified. And we did have some discussions. We have some allocations from both the city and the county that will be influxed into this fund to cover those capital projects. So the capital budget request for all those projects, about $720,000. That's gonna cover all the costs that we anticipate for those. Entertaining question.
Keep in trouble. Go ahead, Commissioner Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Sampson, you may have said this, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but how much of the building is not spoken for?
Right, once we occupy, sorry, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, the third floor, once we occupy that, it will only be the fourth floor of the pillar section that will be vacant. So it's approximately 4,000 square feet.
Similar question, who is in the atrium or going into the atrium? Wants to know who's in there, who's in there.
So the atrium, we've turned that into a conference room. It's one of the few spaces that's not in a secure area in that building, and it will provide a easily accessible conference room for public meetings or occupants of the building. Similar in size to this room. So we're in our, right now we're replacing carpet and getting that room dressed up so we can.
Thank you.
Comments? Yes, Manager.
Mayor, commissioners, the county CAO and I have also been talking about the potential to recreate the building board, which I think went away. We bonded the improvements, paid off the bond with this building, and really became an annual discussion. With the law enforcement center, I think it's time to reinstitute that board just through an MOU, so that the county and the city meet at least on a quarterly basis to look at the improvements necessary. And not speaking for the county CAO, but we've had good discussions in terms of the critical issue relative to the boiler. And if it goes out in the middle of winter and we have the sheriff's department and the police department unable to use their office space, that's not going to serve our residents well. So the city has put in our budget for your consideration through the next several weeks, $400,000 is our contribution to that. And Roger, I'll let you speak to the issue on your side.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Burton has laid it out just perfectly. We've had these conversations, and I think back several years ago when we made the decision to purchase this building. We knew it was an older building. We bought it in as is condition, and we knew we were going to have some expenses associated with it. And I feel like our conversations have been very good, very positive, very productive. And I kind of think of it this way, that we are now the custodians for a taxpayer's asset in that building, and that it's responsible for us to take appropriate care of it and keep it in the condition it needs to be kept in, and all of the things that Mr. Burton just said. So I think we have a very good plan that we've been discussing at the staff level, of course, subject to approval of both commissions.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Seems like you guys don't need a board.
Well, I do think that there's other improvements that need to take place, and I think it would be good to, in my opinion, meet with elected officials and staff on those issues and how we wrestle with them and bring them forward for consideration. And we don't have to do it, but it certainly has worked over the many years. And we've got some challenges. I think that we're able to probably address the most immediate needs. Like Roger says, depending on commission approval, but there's more problems that we have to work our way through as well.
There's some, the commission would approve the board or the expenditures that would be necessary, as you see.
Well, I think that if we create a board through an MOU, we'd want commission approval of that. And obviously the expenditures are always approved by the commissions.
Any other comments for Superintendent Sampson? Not, we appreciate your presentation.
Oh, like just one comment, I think, I'm gonna get a head shake from those who have been involved. Mr. Sampson, the $16.75 to $19. I would argue that when we bought the building again, as is shape, we were anticipating those rents over time would go up as we started to jump into these projects. So if that's a sticker shock to anyone, I'm viewing it as it's kind of a normal progression that we were anticipating. So is that kind of how everyone's been seeing?
Yeah, I think Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, it's I think two things. One is we have now about 3 years of history of operation costs. And as we occupy more and more of the building, we have additional supplies required, power usage. So we're starting to see now a trend, and eventually I think that'll level out and we'll be able to settle on.
On the boiler purchases, I mean, I'm just assuming that this is going to make us more energy efficient within the building. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, the proposal that we got from the engineer, we had it engineered to give us the best product that we could possibly do with redundancy built in. So what we're actually proposing, we have a boiler room, there's 2 antiquated old steam boilers in it. And we're proposing to actually relocate the boiler room. So we keep the existing system in place. We'll install new boilers with redundancy. There'll be hot water boilers instead of steam, so more efficient. And again, we'll have that backup. So we won't, if we only need 2, but we have 3, we'll have that rotation and be able to make it more efficient. They'll be modulating the energy efficient.
Any other comments? Please.
Sorry.
No,
I gotta add maybe just one other thing. So as the building has become functional for us, one of the things that I think you're probably all aware of is one of the challenges that we have to be thinking about for the future as more use of the building occurs is the parking around the building. If you can envision the streets that are around it and the parking options that we have, they're somewhat limited. So those are a part of our conversations too, with uses that we're anticipating for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
On that note,
Go ahead.
is it possible, and I don't think we do this right now, I know there's the parking lot that is to the north, right below YWCA and St. Peter's. We don't lease that, do we? Or we do lease it?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Dean, we lease a number of spaces, about 11 spaces in that lot.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Sampson. We will move along. I'm making good time. HCTV Public Television Executive Director Kirsten Fuller. You got the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Mayor, Commissioners, City and County staff, and some other guests, I think. I am Kirsten Fabian, the Executive Director of Helena Civic Television. We are cable channel 189 on the Spectrum system, but also live streaming from our website and video on demand with most programs. And it's good to see Tim Burton, I think the city manager, when we came online, and I can't recall if you're on the county or city side, but
The city side.
okay, so welcome back. So in my, I guess in the just brief memo that I had, just outlining some of the projects that we were involved in and currently going forward, which are exciting to us. And also bringing in additional grant monies not just funding from the city and county side of things. And then just want to make mention that the city agreement is up for renewal before June 30th. And just want to keep on the radar, and Troy already, our liaison, is aware of that. And whoever we need to sit down with that for the renewal of our agreement to produce, telecast, closed caption and stream and all the things that we do, archive the city meetings. And it's really all I have. Open for questions.
Oh, boy, you're in trouble. Go ahead, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for you. I was looking at the budget. Are we doing closed captioning now? Is that part of the?
Yes, happily, and
Cool.
happy to say that we are, yes.
Okay, and is that where would I find that in the budget?
It's actually rolled into, it's a 2-year lease contract that we are managing, that the city funds, and it's not a line item. It's just in the, I guess, the two payments that we pay. Troy might be able to say that a little better, but, right, it's just rolled into the funding.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, I'm delighted to hear that that is happening. And then just a quick question on the training and education line.
Mhm.
There's a line for studio. And it was a number that was significantly larger than any others, and it just jumped out at me, and I wasn't clear what that would be.
Actually, that is for. Actually, I think what you're looking at, studio is 270, below that is head in. Is that where you're looking at the 17,300? Commissioner Reed?
Yes. it is.
Okay, so that is exactly related to the cost, so I guess it is in there. A part of that is Inco Systems closed captioning, which is $1,330 a month.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
You're welcome.
Right, we will move along to IT&S Director Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. Ben Thomas, I'm the Director of the City County IT Department. Presented for your review is our fiscal year 2023 budget and supporting documentation. This budget has gone before the Information Technology Board and the Information Technology Steering Committee, and they have both endorsed this budget. I have 3 items as part of our budget proposal. We have our IT&S budget book, which lists our expenses. We have our cash flow analysis with the assistance of the County Finance Director, and we have our capital improvement plan. The proposed fiscal year 2023 budget definitely reflects unavoidable cost increases, both in personnel services and our operating costs. Personnel services realized an increase for fiscal year 22 and again in fiscal year 23 for a cost of living adjustment on the county side. We had a few staff longevity increases that are a minor percent of services of the personnel services increase. Throughout the maintenance, or excuse me, throughout the operations and maintenance sections of the budget, all of the software applications that are modeled on subscriptions based on the number of users basically saw an increase across the board. It's a simple fact, as users increase, our subscription increases. Combined for fiscal year 22, the city and the county had 46 positions. These are either new.
I'm sorry.
Pardon me? Excuse me there.
Positions?
46, but they're not necessarily just new positions. These are some new positions, but also some positions that needed user licensing because of the system change. And so we had to basically increase increase our subscription counts to reflect those users coming into those systems. So our subscription-based software across fiscal year 22 increased by 50 users. That's a cost that also rolls into fiscal year 23. Also in fiscal year coming up in fiscal year 23, the Geographic Information System, GIS, they're gearing up for their aerial imagery flyover. So they'll fly over and map the city of Helena and probably part of the county. They do this roughly every 5 years. A lot of city and county planning use those aerial imagery for a lot of their plans. The costs for the flyover are reflected in our budget, but the costs are actually covered or specifically designated to come from the Montana Land Information Act Fund, supported by the County Treasurer's Office. For fiscal year 23, the CIP or the Capital Improvement Plan, similar to years past, we've done a summary to make it a little easier to run through those if folks would like to get into the detail. The equipment that is all part of our capital improvement is reaching its end of life, and that's really based on a couple factors. If the manufacturer is ending support or it's reached its end of life, they do not provide security updates. So we have to replace that equipment. We also run into hardware that is basically technologically outdated. It's too slow for what we need on the network at this time. I'll go into the budget book as part of our summary. We broke down the personnel services and ran a comparison between 2021 to 2022 to 2023, and we've broken out those individual cost increases. We've also done this for the operations and maintenance. We had fixed charges, which had a minor increase. Our supplies for resale had a minor increase, totaling up to overall for those increases, $280,904. The GIS flyover, which was not in the 22 budget, but is in the 23 budget, is projected at about $95,000. And our capital improvement plan roughly increases by about $81,000. Overall, our budget increased $457,000 for fiscal year 23. Any questions before we move on?
Comments or questions from the body? Please continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, I will look to my county finance officer for assistance to go through the cash flow report. This is your creation. I will look to your guidance to help me through this one.
So just quickly, this just shows the cash flow. So it starts at the top with the total revenues. The first column is the proposed budget for fiscal year 23, second column projected for fiscal year 2022. You can see the imbalance in this budget that we're trying to work with right now. Our operating expenses exceed the operating revenues. We're using cash reserves this year. Obviously, the GIS reserve is being used for the $95,000 and drawing down on capital reserves to fund those capital costs. This includes a 5% increase in the operating revenue, the charges that go out across the city and county to all the users in an attempt to try to close that gap on the operating revenues. It's something that we're watching pretty closely, and we'll be working on a new cost allocation plan over the next year. But yeah, looking at it very closely, there's been a shift in the cost from capital to operations, right? As we move more to the cloud, we get subscription costs rather than have a piece of capital equipment that you're saving for to replace it in X number of years. And it's just increased the operating costs pretty significantly over the last few years as we've shifted to that model.
Sir. Would you please go back on your front page, funds filter? Can you explain if this applies for resale?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, supplies for resale are basically reimbursements. For example, if we purchase a specialized piece of computing equipment for a particular department, the IT department will purchase that, and the department will basically replenish our revenues for that particular piece of equipment. So it's a pass-through from a department through IT to get the particular piece of equipment.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'll go through our capital improvement plan. Feel free to dive in and ask questions if I'm overlooking anything you'd like more information on. We grouped our capital improvement projects or pieces of equipment together just to make it a little easier to go through them. They're grouped by physical servers. These are servers that still exist in city county buildings. We have not moved these to the cloud. A couple noteworthy ones, we're going to be partnering with the PD on their RMS project and replacing their servers along with that project. So as they begin to move forward, we will be putting in new hardware to support their new system. Moving down the list a little bit, we have point-to-point networking devices. These basically connect building to buildings across the city and county. We have about 37 total. Each building needs two. It needs one to send and one to receive. So we've got a number of those that have come due for replacement. The next on the list are the wireless access points. If any of you are on wireless in this building, we have wireless access point up in the corner. So these are used throughout the buildings. We've got many of them. City county building is fairly well outfitted. We have already reached the end of life on some of these devices. So we're going to replace about 20 of them throughout the city and county building for fiscal year 23. We've got a number of firewall devices, network devices that protect us from the internet to make sure that only the traffic we want gets out and nothing comes back in. We have 3 very small devices that are used throughout the parking garages or parking commissions. They are needed for credit cards so that we can maintain PCI compliance with the credit card industry. Also, our main firewall in the city county building that manages pretty much all the other internet-based traffic, that is also due for replacement. Pardon me, was there a question? Nope. One piece of infrastructure in the city county building, it's the main UPS that runs a number of network devices and a couple servers that are still on premise. That is up for replacement. We have one piece of database software. This one interacts with the Central Square finance system. So that's due for an upgrade. And on the last item, we did push the main file storage. So all the data files that we keep for city and county government, we pushed this off by 2 fiscal years out to fiscal year 25. Roughly, this is about $125,000 piece of equipment, comprised of 2 pieces, a primary and a disaster recovery or a backup piece. But in order to run it out for 2 more fiscal years, we have to add maintenance. So there's an additional cost to keep it running so that anything happens, we have vendor support for those devices. I would welcome any questions.
Comments or questions? Board Director. See none, they're letting you off easy. There you go. I knew you could do that. Go ahead.
You know myself. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, trying to look through this quickly, it's a lot of information. Are there costs associated with teleworking and VPNs or things like that that have changed over time? Is there any reflection of that in the budget or?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Reed, there are costs associated to it with remote work or VPNs. They're not specifically reflected in this. That hardware is already basically in our system. We are maintaining it. We're not growing it at all, so those costs simply are just part of our normal operation.
Thank you, Director Thomas.
Mayor, if I may address also Commissioner Reeves' question. So that is part of the cost that gets passed off to the city based on the number of devices that we maintain. So if we increase the number of devices to allow people to work from home and or in the office, that's 2 devices instead of 1. It does cost more to the city and or county.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Director Thomas.
Mayor, thank you.
Lewis and Clark Humane Society, do we have a representative present? Madam Clerk,
Yes.
do you have a representative online or present?
Yes, I am Cassidy Cook. I am the Director of Development at the Lewis and Clark Humane Society. Unfortunately, our Executive Director had a death in the family today, so I'm filling in last minute.
Excuse me, can we increase the volume? I don't know which way we need to increase that volume, but could we please? Ooh, ITNS working for us. Okay, please continue, ma'am.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay. I am Cassidy Cook. I'm the Director of Development for the Lewis and Clark Humane Society. I apologize, our ED couldn't be here. She had a death in the family today, so I am filling in very last minute. Please be patient with me, as this is something that's a little new to me. So are you guys all ready? Do you have all the materials in front of you?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Okay. LCHS, if you guys are not aware, provides stray safekeeping and for abandoned cruelty and rehoming services for the city and the county, as well as Jefferson and Broadwater counties. Basically for domesticated animals, primarily dogs and cats. We are this year asking for a 6% increase in the budget because of the drastic cost of living increase. As you all know, keeping good staff during this hiring crisis has been difficult, but we're also planning on adding retirement for our full-time staff who have been in their positions for 2 or more years. So we're looking at, basically just cost of inflation increase for our budget, as well as paying for staff. So do you guys have any questions looking at what you have in front of you right now? Comments or concerns?
Commissioners? Please continue, ma'am.
I think that's as it for me as far as my little spiel. I don't know if you guys want any statistics, if you want me to explain any numbers or anything of that ilk.
Comments or questions from the commission? We have a question from Commissioner Dean.
Have you experienced a similar spike in donations as other community rescue organizations?
It depends on what you mean by spike in donations.
If an increase during the pandemic?
So yeah, it was interesting. We actually experienced an increase in 2020 immediately. And then we actually experienced a relatively significant drop off in 2021. I don't know necessarily what that means. I don't know if it was a lot of people. We did see a lot of people donating their stimulus checks who didn't necessarily feel like they needed them. So there was a little bit of increase when it came to that. But we definitely saw a sharp decrease in 2021 as people started to go back to their normal lives and start going on vacation, etc. again. But I definitely wouldn't say that we have seen a noticeable increase over the last year or so, but it has remained relatively steady.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Comments? We appreciate your presentation, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners.
We will move along to Lewis and Clark Library, Director Finn. You have the floor.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody. Commissioners, Mayor Collins, I hope you had a chance to take a look at our budget, preliminary budget. The Board of Trustees passed this budget at their March meeting. Our revenue projections are set based on figures that we received from Nancy in January. We actually ratchet down a little bit. We're a little more conservative when we build our revenue budget, just in case bad things happen. So we're a little lower than what Nancy suggested, but we're right there. The big thing for us this year are salaries. Because of the increase in inflation, we based our salary COLA adjustments this year on the CPIU Western Region figures. In February, they were about 7%. They're at 8.7% now. But we did make adjustments for COLA for all staff members at 7.1%. It's a big jump, but I think it's necessary for our team. That's the biggest increase in this year's budget. Our bookmobile expenses are considerably higher this year. We need to replace the tires on the bookmobile rig. And that's a $7,000 increase that we did not have last year. We've increased our consulting budget because we contracted with an outside HR firm to help us manage HR issues after our HR administrator retired in January. We've increased our capital line to reflect some ADA adjustments at the branch libraries in Augusta and Lincoln. The library anticipates increases in utilities expenses in the coming year, and we've adjusted accordingly. Finally, these are the known things. Finally, the Library Foundation has had an amazing run over the last several years. Their total assets right now stand at over $1 million. And those are going to increase quickly due to us being a beneficiary of a new trust that we are just now starting to see the benefits of, which is great. Our big unknown for fiscal year 2023 is the fact that MMIA has dropped libraries across the state from their health insurance plans. So as of July 1, we will have a plan in place, but as of July 1, we currently don't have a plan that our employees will be covered for health insurance. We're out on the open market right now. It's distressing to not know what our insurance situation is going to be on July 1, but we're working on that. MMIA had some issues with liability and workers' comp, which we cover ourselves. We don't cover through MMIA. So the state library and MMIA are working out some sort of language that might allow us to continue to be under MMIA if the city would still let us be on their plan if that gets worked out. But right now, that's our big unknown. We don't know how much we're going to increase our health insurance spending or if we're not going to increase it. So right now, we have a figure in our budget, but it might change before the final budget is finalized in August. We've had a great year reopening. We're back to full services at the library, brand new building. I would say everybody survived, but that's not true. We did lose a staff member due to COVID in November, and we're still working through those issues as well. So I thank you. I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Director Finn. Commissioner Reed. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm happy to defer. You have a trust. It's new.
It's a new trust to us. A member of the community passed away in 2020, and we were made a beneficiary of that trust.
So is this like an endowed trust you receive a distribution from it, or is it did you just get big bag of money.
It's a 25-year trust. It will dissolve in 25 years. Each year for those 25 years, though, we will reap the benefits of capital gains. So as long as the market does well, the foundation will do well.
So don't count on it today, but maybe in a year or two, right?
Correct. So we just received a disbursement from the 2020 tax year that was truly shocking. In a good way.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm a little, it seems worrisome that MMIA would think that somehow or another, because you purchase workers' comp from them, that they would not insure you for health purposes.
Just the opposite. They have concerns with ensuring libraries that do have their workers' comp or liability insurance through MMIA. They feel that because libraries hold a unique position in the state, we're fairly independent. We're not city employees, we're not county employees. We work for the Library Board of Trustees. MMIA feels that since the city was providing our insurance, that they were providing insurance for employees who were not city employees, and MMIA has a problem with that.
And this has been going on though for quite a while.
It has. But they just made that decision in February.
And so you get workers' comp through
another agency.
But not the state fund.
Not the state fund, another insurance company.
And then that decision might be the city's decision to make.
Well, the MMIA board's making their decisions based upon liability and the fact that the library doesn't follow our personnel policies and procedures, etc. The decision that we might be able to make, and probably would, is that if MMIA says that the library can stay in the pool, if the city agrees, then I think that the city should agree, because we've been doing it for a long, long time.
So not to keep this going. So this could be the city's decision here, not so much MMIA exiting the library, but we would be retaining them in our healthcare plan.
Well, they're in our healthcare plan now.
Yes,
And MMIA is saying with the present governance structure, it doesn't work because they don't follow city personnel policies and procedures, and they're not governed by the city commission, other than the interlocal agreement that created the city county life.
I hate all the just aggregated insurance policies we have in the state of Montana, and the people who pay the price are the employees that are in. So I'm very sympathetic to, I'm sorry. I hope it works out okay. Your library is outstanding. I spent some time there in the last 6 months doing work on my own. I can't tell you how impressed I am with that facility. So regards for this citizen to the board, the folks that put that together, it's remarkable how nice that is. Thank you.
Commissioner Hunthausen.
Well, I thought I had a question, but Nancy just shook her head at me. I was curious if they were eligible for our plan, because we insure Rocky and Mako and Peerview, and they follow our policies.
We tried, we reached
But it
out.
doesn't.
Libraries, I think, are explicitly exempt from being a part of the county.
Okay, thank you.
I see you missing one city board member. What's going on with that?
I think it's going to be talked about tomorrow at the work session.
Any other comments or questions for the, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I just wanted to recognize the work of the library during the pandemic, and since then, the work you did to keep things going and to let kids order books and pick them up was outstanding, and I greatly appreciated it.
Thank you, Coach.
Any other comments or questions for Director Finn? Thanks for your presentation, Director.
Thank you.
So what kind of bad risk? is
Court
the library?
Services Officer R.J. McNeil. Madam Clerk, do you have them online, or are they going to be here?
Mr. Mayor, if you can hear me, I don't see RJ online in the attendees. I can certainly reach out directly to Mr. McNeil and make sure that he understands that he could participate online or be here in the building as well. We may not have contacted him in time with his time, that his agenda item was going to be coming up this quickly. So I'll reach out to him directly if you'd like to move on to Ms. Otardo, or would you rather I wait?
Is Ms. Otago here?
She is online at this time.
Yeah, if she is ready to present, we will open the floor to her.
Pam, are you available to speak now?
Yep, I am. I'm right here.
Thank you.
Okay, it's Pam Attardo. I'm the Heritage Preservation Officer for the city and county. And this is regarding the budget for the Lewis and Clark County Helena Heritage Tourism Council. You'll note from the documentation that essentially my budget request is the same, 20,000 from the city. But the second one for the Lewis and Clark County contribution has gone up to 96,817, and that reflects funding for the old Lincoln Cemetery project. And the county commission is familiar with this project. This is under an MOA, a memorandum of agreement with the U.S. Forest Service and some other parties, including the State Historic Preservation Office. We have to repair some wooden grave enclosures, and we have to build a barrier between the active and historic portions of the cemetery. So that basically explains the increase for the county's contribution. Does anybody have any questions?
Comments or questions for Ms. Otardo? I guess they all understand your budget, Ms. Otardo, because they're not raising their hands, so.
All right. Great. Well, thank you.
You bet. Madam Clerk, do we have an RJ McNeil available?
Mr. Mayor, I have emailed him and tried to contact Mr. McNeil directly on the phone, and at this time I haven't been able to contact him. So unless he's in the attendees right now and wants to raise his hand, and I just don't see his handle. I don't see him. We are about nearly 30 minutes ahead of schedule. So I leave it to the commission and to you, Mr. Mayor, as to how you might want to proceed.
We'll give him another 10 minutes. If he's not here, we'll move along.
So at this time, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you can see that the historic preservation budget was the last on our agenda. So the only budget presentation we have left to go over with you all is Mr. McNeil's.
Yes, we are aware. So we will take a 10-minute break and be back in 10 minutes. Would you pull out that sign, Madam Clerk? Okay, he is here. Disregard, ladies and gentlemen of the public, you have the floor, sir.
Okay. So community service. So I get referrals for folks to do community service. Referrals come from the different courts or probation offices or attorney's offices. So therefore, folks to do community service in lieu of paying fines or serving jail time or just sometimes as part of their sentence. I also get referrals for folks to sign up, and I track that they're doing counseling and assessments for generally like PFMA, domestic violence type charges. That's the Victim Services Office. So that's what I do in a nutshell. And while I didn't think we could see another 2020, 2021 was very similar. The community service hours done, it was a little lower in 2021 than 2020, but not too much. At least the adults hours were higher. Juvenile hours were down a little bit, but the per month average was pretty close. And so far in 2022, there's a little bit more
hours being done, so hopefully things will be looking up. And in terms of the Victim Services Office referrals, I'm just getting a lot of referrals, not a much different number for new cases necessarily, but there's a steady flow. The one thing I did notice, there was a lot of completions in 2021, which is great. Almost half again is more as the year before. So that is folks completing all the court ordered counseling, assessments, and paying all their fees to my office. And that is what I have. Any questions?
Comments or questions for Mr. McNeil?
Mr. Mayor, RJ, just for explanation purposes, victim services versus. So what is that? What do you?
I'm sorry, Victim Services versus.
Well, the communities, regular community service stuff. What's the difference there?
Well, so the one is the Victim Services is it's like misdemeanor probation. That's not what it is exactly, but they have to report to me and provide me proof that they're doing court ordered counseling, and then pay a monthly supervision fee. And then community services is different. It's similar in terms they need to sign up and I tracked it, but it's them doing community service hours and paying a one-time fee per the referral. Yes.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. In your budget, your operations budget is almost doubling. Are you guys expanding your space?
No, it is, from what I understand, due to security in the courthouse. Is that correct? Nancy?
Yes,
Yes, that's
correct.
exactly.
We took a big jump because of the armed security.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
You track all of the hours and then ensuring folks have done order counseling or anything else. Is that all a paper-based system or how do you manage that?
Both paper and in a computer.
Help me out here, Mr. McNeil. With the juveniles, how do you get them into your system?
So the referrals are from either the juvenile probation office sometimes, or probably an equal number is both the municipal court or justice courts in terms of minor possession, alcohol, tobacco, or marijuana now.
Any other comments from the body? Thanks for your presentation, sir.
Cool. All right, thank you.
At this time, we will open the floor to public comments. Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Is that a public comment?
No, that's the last budget presentation. Historic preservation.
That's him. I thought Ms. Attorney already did that.
Oh, it's Pam already here?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
I
she
was out
already
trying to find
presented.
it.
Yeah, she was online.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. She's on there.
Okay, I'll re-echo what it's not public comments. Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk, do you have any raised hands?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no hands raised online and I have no written public comment either. I am not in the room to verify, but it doesn't appear anyone is in the room to make public comment.
Okay, so at this time, we will join this meeting only for
Just for
Commissioner Fever and Commissioner Reed. This meeting is adjourned. You have your time. In time, you can make your next meeting, Commissioner.
I will